God forgive me. That was my inner thought, you know. God forgive me. I think I'm going to die now. Then after that, I have to do what I had to do.
Oh, I've lost control.
I have control. Dex, check the pressurization loss. Be prepared.
Checking QRH for...
Although the autopilot instantly corrects the aircraft's bank to the right, the effect of the blast is far from over.
Stay in your seat, please.
The cabin crew's first priority is to stop passengers leaving their seats. Yukihiko Usui is sitting in the row directly behind the explosion. Both his legs are badly wounded. Steward Fernando Bayot moves him away from the blast site.
Please sit down and fasten your seatbelt.
Bayot now turns his attention to Haruki Ikegami. He has been swallowed by the smoking hole where seat 26K used to be.
I saw this man, only his head and his arms were peering out of the hole, so I tried to pull him out.
After the struggle to lift him out, Bayot realizes that part of the lower half of Ikegami's body is missing. Within a couple of minutes, he dies. The cabin crew do not want Ikegami's death to panic passengers, so they pretend to minister to him. Bayot then reports to the captain.
Oh, Captain.
Okay? Keep the passengers calm. Make sure they stay in their seats. There's been an explosion in row 26. One dead and several injured, and the cabin's full of smoke. There's a hole in the floor. Go inspect the damage, Dex.
Yes, sir.
Reyes' first concern is that the blast could make a hole in the aircraft's skin. This would lead to sudden depressurization in the cabin and necessitate an emergency descent.
There was a huge gaping hole beside her, and if a small tear in the skin of the aircraft was, if there were a hole there, it most probably would open up and then pull us out of the aircraft. When I saw that there was no damage to the outer skin, I went up and reported to the captain. Well, we assumed that the pressurization system would hold.
Immediately after the explosion, the co-pilot's steering wheel slams to the right, and the aircraft banks in the same direction. The autopilot immediately corrects the deviation, but soon Reyes discovers that the autopilot steering system is another victim of the blast.
Then I said, okay, I'm going to try to turn the airplane using the autopilot, but there was no reaction, whether I tried it to make it go down or up, or left and right turns, no reaction. I said, now we have a problem.
This is not Reyes' only problem. In the cabin, one of the injured passengers needs urgent medical attention. Tokyo is still 2.5 hours away, and Reyes decides to try and land at Naha Airport on the island of Okinawa, located 74 kilometers to the west. He orders the co-pilot to make a mayday call.
Yes, sir. Naha, PAL 434, heavy declaring emergency. Explosion on board. We have casualties. Requesting emergency landing at Naha. We will need full emergency services on landing.
PAL 434, Naha, please repeat. Say again.
Naha, PAL 434, heavy declaring emergency. Explosion on board. We have casualties. Request emergency landing at Naha. We will need full emergency
Getting the Japanese air traffic controller to understand the emergency proves to be difficult.
Naha, Naha, Naha. This is Philippine Airlines 434, flight level 330. A bomb has exploded on board. Bravo, Oscar, Mike, Bravo. Bomb explosion. Request emergency landing at Naha.
And there was silence. Then the controller came in, another controller, an American. Okay, Philippine 434, I'm taking over.
The American air traffic controller is from an American base on Okinawa.
Turn left, heading.
No, I shot back, we cannot turn at this moment yet. We will tell you when we are starting to turn towards Naha. We have problems with our flight controls.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We will be making an early landing at Naha Airport in Okinawa. We'll be landing as soon as possible, so please remain in your seat with your seatbelt fastened.
But landing at Naha is easier said than done. The autopilot is not responding to any of Reyes' commands, and PAL 434 is heading straight past Okinawa. Reyes must find a way to steer if he is to have any chance of landing safely. But disengaging the autopilot might result in losing what minimal control he still has over the aircraft.
Okay. Let's keep the seatbelt sign on. When we disengage the autopilot, we might lose control, so be ready.
Since the autopilot won't react to any inputs that I make, I was scared if I disengage the autopilot, the aircraft might make a sudden bang to the right that we might not be able to control.
At a count of 3, I'll disengage. 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three. Tuck. Nothing happened. And then there was, we were relieved.
I can't turn using the controls. Looks like the explosion jammed the aileron. Dex, what's the QRH say about jammed ailerons?
The QRH, or Quick Reference Handbook, is the pilot's Bible that lists procedures that must be followed in emergency situations.
Jammed flight controls. Use maximum force possible, including both pilots if required.
Okay. That's forced.
Reyes tries brute force to activate the ailerons, the panels on each wing which turn the aircraft. Since the explosion, he can only fly straight.
Not getting anything from the ailerons. Can't get off this heading. Okay. Re-engage the autopilot while I work out our options.
As PAL 434 looks like missing Naha Airport, Reyes comes up with another plan.
We gotta turn. We'll have to use differential power. Disengage auto throttle. Pull back 3 and 4.
Captain Reyes increases thrust to the engines on the left-hand side of the plane and reduces power to the engines on the right. Very slowly, the aircraft starts to circle right. He then lowers his speed to make a smaller radius turn. With guidance from air traffic control, Reyes hopes that the maneuver will eventually line up with the runway at Naha.
So while we were descending on low speed, I tried to test the flight controls, and there are some little reactions.
The elevator is beginning to respond. Dex.
The elevator is a control that makes the plane ascend and descend.
250 knots. Flaps 1 on speed.
In order to land safely, Reyes will need at least minimal control over the elevator and rudder. As PAL 434 nears Naha, he continues to reduce his airspeed.
Flaps 10.
Flaps 10 set. Speed 225.
Okay, she's turning.
Sir, if we reduce our weight, we will be able to reduce our approach and landing speeds. Suggest we dump fuel.
Oh, sige. Magaling.
Reyes orders the systems engineer to dump 36 tons of fuel.
5 minutes, 20,000 pounds.
Less fuel means less strain on landing gear and brakes at touchdown.
Check.
As the time to touchdown gets closer, Reyes worries that the bomb may have done more as yet unknown damage to the aircraft.
I'm not certain our landing gear will hold up. Strap yourself in. I'll grease the purser.
So he talked to the head of the cabin crew and he said, "We're not sure if the gears will go down, and in case the gears collapse while landing, be ready to evacuate."
It's either you make it or you die. That's because you cannot do anything anymore.
Runway in sight.
With only minimal control over the aircraft, Reyes faces the most challenging landing of his career. "10,000 meters above the Pacific Ocean on a flight from the Philippines to Tokyo, a terrorist bomb cripples the flight controls of a jumbo jet. As PAL 434 starts its final approach, the 292 people on board are pinning their hopes of survival on the skill of Captain Ed Reyes.
I know everybody was scared. We are all scared. I know that.
Gear down.
The gears were supposed to come down a few seconds, but that was the longest second. Because we were waiting for the greens to come on.
Take a long time.
It took a long time. It was a long few seconds until when it locked.
3 green, sir.
I'm disconnecting the autopilot and landing manually, okay? Dex, monitor my descent rate, call altitude and speed. Flaps 30.
Okay, 500 feet on course.
Flaps 30 set.
Help me with the elevator. When I say push, I want you to push.
Okay, 200 slightly left.
Correcting. Push.
100. 50. 30. Power off. Pull.
Your last command was pull.
Yeah, my last command was pull.
I made sure that the throttles were closed because he might give a go around, and I would make sure that we would stay on the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain speaking. We'd like to thank you for your cooperation and your patience. Emergency crews are on their way. We'll try and get you out of here as soon as possible. Thank you.
The Philippine Airlines 747 is now a crime scene under Japanese jurisdiction.